Okay, so in this video I want to give a book review of Remembering the Kanji 1, and also talk about how it applies to how you would use it in the mass immersion approach or in all Japanese all the time if you're doing those methods. So what I did personally was I did 25 a day in this book for 3 months alongside the Recognition RTK Anki deck, which you can get online for free. And I did 12 a day in that at the same time and kind of line them up. So I'll get into whether I think that's a good idea or what you should do by the end of the video, but first I'm going to give the pros and cons of this book. So some cons, it's out of context obviously. There's a lot of kanji. It's just a list of kanji with stories like this. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah. And so there's some weird English associations also. Some weird terms that you kind of have to get used to. He makes up his own primitives, which help you make your own stories or go along with his stories, which can be a good thing, but there's no Japanese readings. So all the Japanese readings and how you're going to speak them, that's all going to come from actually absorbing real Japanese content and seeing how things are actually pronounced. It's not going to come from this book. The kanji are in isolation and in the book, and so when kanji are combined, the readings change, the meaning changes completely sometimes. So just expecting to be able to read novels at the end of the book is not going to happen. So yeah, that's something to consider. There's uncommon kanji at the beginning of the book and common kanji at the end of the book, which, if your goal is to get through all the Joyo kanji, that's not really a downside, but if your goal is to just be able to read basic sentences at first, and that's something that you want to put effort into doing, then maybe this book isn't the best way of doing that. But the plus side is you'll get through thousands of kanji within 3 months, and you'll get exposed to the uncommon ones and the common ones, and that way there won't be any weird plateaus of, okay, I know these common kanji, but how do I progress from, let's say, 500 to 1,000 plus? Okay, another con is that the stroke order is not listed for parts of kanji that have already come up before. So when you get to the end of the book, there are kanji in there that just don't have stroke order listed whatsoever. And so you have to use a dictionary or another resource to look up the stroke order. So that was another downside. And the last downside I have is that the stories stop at, the stories that Heisig gives you stop at around 500 to 600 kanji, and then after that you have to make up your own stories, which can be a good thing since they'll stick better when you make up your own stories, but you don't even have, like, he just gives you three primitive, not primitives, but three like parts of what you can make your story out of, and that's it. And so you're kind of on your own there when it comes to making up your own stories towards the end of the book. Now for some pros. It allows you to understand some basic meaning of kanji without knowing any Japanese. So if you're a total beginner and you don't know any Japanese, but you want to get a feel for the meaning of kanji, then it's a good thing. Another good thing is it allows you to easily see all the parts of the kanji so that you can break down the kanji and see, okay, this radical makes up this kanji, and so it's not just a blur when reading it when you're not familiar with kanji. So that can be really helpful. and the way it's organized is really logical. So it's not like all the water radicals are listed in a row, but it's like the parts that are introduced at the beginning of the book build off of each other, and so it has a snowball effect where you can go from understanding, you know, the first 100, and it builds off of that to 200, 300, 400, and so on. And there's never anything that's introduced that's like stuff you haven't seen before. All of the parts of the kanji build off of each other in a really logical way, so it's really helpful. This method can be really effective because by the end of the book, you can get through 2,200 kanji in a relatively short amount of time. Like I said, like 3 months if you do 25 a day, and it's totally doable, and it could be more effective than if you learn it like a Japanese kid would learn it, where they're just learning like the most common kanji when they're young, and then those kanji don't look like each other, and so they're totally different looking, and so this way the kanji look like each other and they build off of each other, and so it's effective in that way. Until you get through all the Joyo kanji, so it's a good thing about the book. I think its true value, the true value of this book depends on if you are really passionate about learning how to write from the beginning of your language learning journey, then I'd recommend it, because it will teach you to write from memory, even though it takes a lot of effort, and it would probably take you much longer than 3 months to actually write all of them from memory. I wrote them out once, just to help me remember how to read them, but I didn't really practice writing them from memory, since that wasn't something that was really important for me. Okay, so it's not the most ideal thing to spend a lot of time on the book, and not get to Japanese content that you actually enjoy. I think doing books 1 and 3, getting to 3,000 kanji before spending any time reading manga that you like, or watching anime with Japanese subtitles that you want to practice reading, I think that's not the best way of going about it. Since you're learning Japanese to get into Japanese content, right? So it doesn't really make sense to put it off for so long. I think maybe if you're really good at Japanese and you become fluent first, and then you want to go back and learn how to write, I think that could be a way to use this book. But aside from that, I wouldn't really recommend going crazy trying to write it and be a perfectionist. I think that you should get through the book pretty roughly. 25 a day will take you 3 months. So should you skip RTK altogether? I would say not necessarily, but don't go crazy thinking that you have to complete the book in order to reach your Japanese goals, because it just doesn't work that way. Because when you're done with the book, you're not going to be able to read very much anyway. You're going to have to expose yourself to a lot of real Japanese content in order to build that reading ability anyway. So the thing is, like, with the individual kanji that are in this book, you'll be able to roughly guess at the meanings of things that you come across, but you're not going to be able to read the Japanese, you're not going to have the Japanese pronunciation for those, and it's also going to be very vague. You're going to get a lot of things incorrect still, because there's just so much context that matters. So if I could go back in time and redo the process, I would probably just do the recognition RTK deck, and just try to get it done in like a month or a month and a half, so that I could move on to actual Japanese content as soon as possible. Mangas, anime subtitles, drama subtitles, and just start reading and looking up kanji in context. I think that's a much more enjoyable approach and a much more practical approach. And for you AJATTers and MIAers, Since looking up Japanese kanji readings and sentences is going to be inevitable anyway, in the sentence mining phase and the monolingual transition, when you make the monolingual transition, you're going to have to know the Japanese readings. It doesn't really make much sense to spend a lot of time on book 1 and book 3, like upwards of 4, 5, 6 months doing that. Totally out of context, English association, mnemonics only. It doesn't really make too much sense to do that in my opinion, and I think you should just try to get into Japanese content that you enjoy as soon as possible and try to learn that way. So that's my take on it. Hope it was helpful. Subscribe, let me know what you think. I'll make more videos like this. Peace.